And now here's part 2 of our episode. All right, Wes, I need to give you some points.
Yes.
We're gonna give you
yes.
It's all about winning, Wes. That's really all it's about,
That's what I picked up on about this podcast. It's like, okay, there's a way to win, and I'm into that.
I want to be the best at it.
It's like Squid Game here,
Yeah. I'll give you
good.
I'll give you 666 points for your breakdown of Disposable Heroes, and and then I just want to give you a sweet, let's say 17 points for bringing Africa, or bringing Toto in general, but bringing Africa by Toto into the This One Goes to 11 sphere. Amazing song, and it will never die.
One of the greatest songs of all time, honestly.
Michael, do you want to offer any points to Wes?
No, I was going to make sure that you gave him points for the Toto. So
Okay.
So yeah,
that's what matters.
That's all that matters. I'm good.
Else matters.
I'm good from here on out.
Oh, there you go, Ty. Matters, buddy. I like that.
Wes, have you seen Some Kind of Monster?
Of course, my friend.
I haven't seen it.
Oh, it's just the fact that when
gotta see it, man.
When you mentioned James Hetfield, I wasn't sure if we were going to get into the politics of everything, but the part where, he's got to be libertarian?
Libertarian, yeah. He's like Joe Rogan vibes now,
Well, isn't there? Because there's one part in the movie where he goes away for a while for a much needed mental health break, but doesn't he go to Russia to hunt bears?
He does. God.
Yeah.
Whoa. Yeah, I remember that now. Dude, I had totally forgotten about that part. But yeah, he goes. I think it was Russia. Yeah, that's like they're a funny group of guys, man. They're like, honestly, they probably were exactly like this when they were at the peak of their powers. They were they had a lot of demons and were probably pretty problematic in a lot of ways.
Well, it relates to that. It relates to the Napster thing, I think. I think the whole Napster situation, and for those of you who don't know Metallica's involvement in the big Napster question, they were fighting to get compensation for every, any kind of manifestation of their music that was out there on the internet. And
yeah.
And maybe you have feelings about that in general as a recording artist, Wes. Yeah. But it just feels like that sort of relationship with your art, where the compensation for it, and good on them, I guess, to some degree. I actually don't know how I feel about them taking such a strong stand on it. I don't know how do you look at the Napster Metallica relationship these days?
Same sort of on one hand, I'm whack. What are you doing? Dude, you are a multi-millionaire, so successful, and you're really about to do this when you're, when it with illegal downloading of your music, where you're gonna file this huge lawsuit and throw this big fit. But on the other hand, I get why he was doing it, and I see the side of he was kind of sacrificing himself for other artists, so this doesn't become a bigger problem for even smaller artists, which obviously he lost. There was no winning that. Illegal downloading was what was going to happen.
Yeah.
And with the internet, it was inevitable, and it's kind of what led us to where we are now with streaming.
The genie was out of the bottle at that point.
The genie was completely out of the bottle. So he that's why I feel at the end of the day, it's just looked back on in a negative light. Yeah, it's the Lars Napster thing, super whack that he was like that. And I Lars.
It was more Lars than it wasn't James. Lars was taking the lead on that.
Lars took it really upon himself, and not the most likable guy in the world, so it's
and the Danish are generally pretty likable, which is funny. He's maybe the least likable Danish person I've ever heard of.
Yeah. Lars is just very huge egomaniac. I mean, you know, like him and James especially, because like Kirk, if you watch Some Kind of Monster, you'll see like Kirk is kind of like the quiet in the background, just trying to like, you know, just trying to like make music, man, and go surfing. But like really Metallica is like the heart and soul of Metallica is Lars and James. And those two are not the most likable guys all the time. But I have a fondness for the both of them. And I feel like I sort of get them both.
Yeah.
That might just be a little bit of like bias because they're my favorite band of all time.
Sure.
But they're very complicated individuals, and it's like,
well, that's our responsibility as the audience, I guess, is to just kind of absorb all of it.
Totally.
I think that'll always be a question that we have to ask ourselves as people who consume music, as people who participate in that. It's like, I don't know, you could say it about any artist they're humans as well. And what is our responsibility towards them. And then also,
absolutely,
here comes your Radiohead mention of the pod, which I can't believe it took us this long till the second part, bro. But Kid A was the other prominent leaked album of that era, if I'm not mistaken, right, Michael?
I think so. Yeah.
You were more of a. Do you remember what Tom and this merry band of fellows thought about that?
I don't remember. I mean, I don't think they ever really dipped into that whole conflict. I mean, they probably weren't super pleased that it got leaked, but after a certain point, they were like, "Well, it's going to happen. So what do we do to make the best of it?" And when it did get leaked, if I'm not mistaken, people who heard it were like, "No, this isn't. No, this isn't them," because it sounded so different from everything that they'd done before that people were just sort of, I don't know, kind of like, well, maybe it's them, maybe it's not. Sounds like his voice, but
that's such a testament to how brilliant they are too. That they did that. That they did Kid A. You know,
they did it. They did the hell out of
it. They did it, dude.
With streaming now, and people, you know, the lowest bands, you know, the smallest bands obviously aren't making any money off streaming either. So I don't know. Yeah, like I don't know who knows what
Spotify. What Spotify is doing right now. I mean, Spotify is a horrible company, you know, like, I mean, what they pay us, you know, it's like a third of a penny stream
per listen.
And
do you have to make it through? Does it have to be a complete listen to get that?
You know, I'm not sure if that, I almost don't even want to.
Yeah.
I almost don't.
No, I don't blame you.
Know for my own mental health, like, just ignorance is bliss.
I'll get it going in the background. I'll get the new record going in the background. I'll just mute it and like I'll listen to it several times, but then I'll get it going for you. We may have to have like a. By the way, Wes, we are a Spotify exclusive. So, you know, no, hey,
free country.
Hey, if Joe Rogan can say what he wants, we can say what we want.
Yeah, I feel like they will not. Yeah, this, like, they at this point, they're like, they know what they're doing and they know how much power they have, and they're probably just like, you know.
We might have to have like a round table about that. We should put that one in the hopper. The music biz round table. Should we get to his criteria, and should we get to brass tacks, as it were?
Yeah. So, Wes, could you tell us what are your standards for a perfect album?
You know, I would be lying to you guys if I said that there was any like real solidified standard that I have.
Okay.
I thought about it, and I think that every song has to be excellent.
Okay.
It's like every single song on the album has to be excellent. And I honestly think that there are very few albums that are like that for me, you know, where it's like every song there's no skip at all. First and foremost.
You're a no skips guy. This is a hotly debated topic.
You know, I think that instrumentally speaking, it's got to be just like, it's got to be very like expansive musically speaking, instrumentally speaking, very refined. Some of the other things would be cultural influence that it has, I think. I mean, there are some perfect albums that are not like these mega albums that like completely have this enormous influence. But in the case of of Master of Puppets. I think Master of Puppets was and still is the crown jewel of the metal genre, and it came at a time where rock was like, it was begging to be like pushed into this direction, if that makes sense. Like, it was like, it, you know, in the early 80s, and like in the late 70s, you know, punk had come out, had come on the scene, and like, you know, obviously rock and roll was like, hard rock had been there, and then punk was there, and then like, it's like, where can we push this? Like, where can we push this style of music? And in the early 80s, you had like Motorhead, and you had bands like Iron Maiden and Judas Priest, and like obviously Sabbath and bands like that. But then Metallica just took it to this speed. It's like a level in terms of like speed and aggression that had never been done before. Alongside of like incredibly beautiful atmospheric melodies. So there was almost this like pop element. Not that it's like poppy, but there is like this element of like accessibility that like this translates to this. It's not like a, like, you know, it's not like an obscure like metal album that's just like, this isn't going to translate to that many people. Like, the masses absorbed this, and this like got its way into the ears of the masses, and it made an entire world, basically. It made the world kind of do a double take. In my understanding of it, it's like, you know, this is like peak hair metal, kind of like flamboyant, like over the top, sort of just like ridiculousness. And then there's this like extremely aggressive, serious, boundary pushing music coming out of I mean, their scene was the West Coast in California, but so I kind of went on a little bit of a tangent, but that is sort of like part of what makes this album perfect to me. It's the cultural significance that this had never been done before up until that point, and it was completely groundbreaking in the way it was done. And also, you have the lyrical aspect of it. It's very like thought-provoking, beautifully written, lyrical like album. And I think that lyrics have to be like really, really good lyrics have to be there for me to like consider it perfect. You know, it's gotta move me, you know, it's gotta really be poetic, and it's gotta like move me. Like, you know, you could say this with like other perfect albums, like Good Kid, Mad City, completely other side of the spectrum. The album is a perfect album. Actually, Kendrick has probably 3, but like for me,
I was about to
2
say,
at least. You know, like Damn is another one. Like Damn's a perfect album to me. But
well, it was interesting you chose Master of Puppets and not, you know, like in terms of we expected you to choose the Black Album, is what we kind of I think we expected you to walk in with that. And so when you chose Master of Puppets, I was like, okay, cool. There's a very interesting case to be made, because as I look back on these, the Black Album really feels like it is clearly taking the next step towards making metal more mainstream from Master of Puppets. So when you say that, because I totally hear what you're saying about Master of Puppets sort of being the apotheosis of what they were trying to do, what they were trying to, and then
it's the peak of thrash metal, I think.
Thrash
metal is like still to this day very fresh, and it doesn't really get old. Like, there are like countless bands that are playing crossover like thrash inspired metal music nowadays. Like, every metal band probably influenced by Metallica in some way. It's like they are one of the most influential bands of all time, because of just I really don't think you could find a heavy band since they came out, since Metallica burst onto the scene, that was not influenced by them in some certain way. And I think that they were a big reason why, not the only reason, but I think they were probably the biggest reason why metal shot out into the stratosphere in terms of like, it just like became this like boundaryless, like this boundaryless genre that really has like, you know, has been taken to like levels that we've not really seen in other genres. I think it's been pushed into so many different directions that it's just crazy. For lack of a better term, it's crazy where it's gone. And modern metal nowadays is like, you know, we say rock, you know, people are always like rock is dead, but like rock is not dead because metal music is still rock music, and metal is like probably the biggest it's ever been.
Yeah. I feel like every week I hear about some new kind of metal. I'm like, there's like cello metal, and I remember some kid in high school talking about elf metal, you know, like some crazy stuff. And there's I think maybe you could make the argument that, you know, soul has suffused popular music in a similar way, or like maybe, and then R&B, you know, kind of because you have the new R&B stuff from the 90s that has you can see that everywhere in what we listen to now.
100%, yeah.
But in terms of like specific permutations of different kinds of metal, different like there's just this whole spectrum of things I have no idea about, and especially in Scandinavia, man, there's some weird stuff happening.
The Scandinavia, like Sweden and Norway, and like they really like experience. I mean, like a band like Meshuggah, for instance,
I've listened to them.
Like that band is like, doesn't sound anything like Metallica, but like owe a lot to Metallica for just this insane boundary pushing like gene that they have. Like they're just like, all right, we're going to take this to an extreme.
Listener, if you want your eyeballs to melt, go check out Meshuggah.
That band is like, that band is that's a monstrous entity.
Monstrous is right.
All into itself.
You get 4,000 points for bringing Meshuggah into the fold.
No problem. No problem.
No problem. So no skips. Problem. No skips for sure. That was an important one. You were the first person I ever met really who was into hardcore music. Like was into like when we met in college, you were the first person I ever met who like went to shows, you know, growing up pretty soft. You know, you brought that into like my consciousness. And like the way that people at those hardcore shows that you would go to, like Balancing Composure and shows like that you would go to in college, that was a whole different kind of energy at a concert than I was ever even, that physical energy that you're talking about. And I want you to very specifically, what is the state mosh of Florida? What is, do you remember? It's the chopper.
The chopper. Oh, dude, man. Florida is like Florida has given birth to so many funny, because I just like there's a period of time in my life where I like knew some people from like the scene in Florida that where there was these hardcore people in like that world are so funny, like just absurd sense of humor, really like spoke to me, and like just tickled this humor bone inside of me. That's just like, just absurd. Yeah, I think the chopper, it's like when you just like hop up and down and spin around like a literal like propeller of like an airplane or a helicopter. It's moshing, like that style of moshing is really funny, and also
that's a relationship with music that I had never really known about until I met you.
It's absurd, but it's also very passionate, and it's some of like the highest. It's like high stakes, man. Like these shows are like, just you can feel like the energy thermometer gauge in the room just get turned up all the way to 11. Seriously, it goes to 11.
There's the commercial.
It seriously goes to 11 at a hardcore show and at a metal show too.
Yeah. You got to open that pit up. I'll open that pit up at the Lodge Room in LA when Post-Annual comes through.
Oh, please do. Man.
I feel like people. I was. I don't know if you watched the Woodstock '99 documentary.
Oh, dude, I want to watch it so bad.
I mean, I remember listening to the radio. I was working some job that summer when Woodstock '99 happened, and I just remember thinking, what did they expect to happen when you put Limp Bizkit followed by Rage followed by Metallica all in one night? I mean, there's just something underneath the music that makes people want to move aggressively, and
go insane.
We could have a very long discussion about Fred Durst and when his involvement in the whole thing, but I mean, there is just something to this music that it makes sense why moshing is what you do with it has this sort of energy underneath it.
And unfortunately for Woodstock 99, and it's not just there, because like toxic masculinity, I know that word has become,
let's say it. Yeah.
It's become kind of like, I don't want to say it's overused at all, because I don't think it is overused, but it's sort of one of those words now that like, people just throw around. But like that's a big problem and negative aspect of the metal and heavy music community, is that it's predominantly men. Mm-hmm. And although that has gotten a lot better recently, which is so awesome to see, like the modern like heavy music scene, more people that aren't straight white cis hetero men, mm-hmm. like being invited into the club, and like it's just gotten so much better. It still probably has a long way to go, but yeah, like that is like that's a real, like, that's where like the fine line can kind of tip into a really negative way. It's where you get all these like really aggressive, angry, dudes, and then they start like assaulting each other and assaulting mm-hmm. people. Yeah. And it turns into this like hellish environment that it's really hard to like, it's hard to reconcile at all. You can't really reconcile that. I guess the way that the music doesn't need to be that way. It doesn't need to like evoke that at all. Yeah. And unfortunately, a lot of the times it does really bring out some like kind of like really messed up things in people, and especially in the concert environment, like in a show environment. I like back in the day, like when I was going to hardcore metalcore shows, saw some just like real violent stuff that was like, at that time I was like I was a teenager, so I was just, there was something about it that was like exciting, to see like violence up close. But I also was like, this is messed up. Like I knew that it was like, this is so goofy, it's so goofy, it's so whack. Like
there's just no place for it. We got to take care of each other in those situations. And like that is, it's on us as audience members, like, and I love when I hear bands be like, take care of each other. Take care of each other out there, like dance and jump around and push each other around. But like, if somebody's getting hurt or somebody's being an asshole, then say something about it. Like, let's stick up for each other.
Oh, 100%, man. Like,
I love it.
Well, there's no time for that anymore. Like we got to leave that BS on the back burner,
in the frickin' Stone Ages.
In the frickin' Stone Age.
Well, let's count up these points. All right. So excellent case, Wes, and I expected no less. So we appreciate it. Taking it back, I gave you 4,000 points for bringing Meshuggah into the conversation, which is just we can show you all the places that metal has gone and will go. Who knows where metal goes next? But I'm stoked to find out. 17 hot ass points for Africa by Toto, because you got to do it. It's metal in it's own way.
It is.
You got 666 points for your soliloquy on Disposable Heroes, because it's a great metal album, or it's a great metal song, and for a lot of reasons. 300 points for bringing up Alice in Chains MTV Unplugged, true all-timer.
Absolutely.
100 points for talking about metal bringing you to your knees, which I think is an underrated effect metal can have on us. And 2003 points for the 2003 Florida Marlins.
2003 is the year that one of the worst metal albums of all time came out. Saint Anger.
Oh, yeah,
by
not
Metallica.
Good. Not good.
That yeah, we can do another podcast on that one.
I think we'll have to.
I think that's for our other podcast called This One Goes to One.
Just stays at one. It stays at one.
Barely gets to one.
And then you gave me a lush orangey red for my effort at condensing Metallica and Master of Puppets into 60 seconds. So, Michael, my dear friend, all those points considered, and Wes's beautiful presence on our podcast considered, can you tell me, is Master of Puppets by Metallica a perfect album?
Yes.
Yes. We don't have to think about it. It's a perfect album.
Oh,
you killed it, man. You killed it. Awesome. Thank you so much for doing this. I love you, man. I miss you so much. I can't wait to see you. Before we talk about our standout track from the album, anything you want to plug? You got a tour coming up. Tell us about the tour.
If you are listening to this before May of the year of our Lord 2022, come see my band that is not a metal band, but we do go there at times.
Yeah.
See my band Post Animal on tour. Wherever you live, we're going to, check us out on the socials and stuff like that. Post Animal, you can find us. Come see us live.
What's the new record called?
New record is called Love Gibberish.
Love Gibberish.
Yeah, and it's out independently on May 13th, the day that I see you in Los Angeles.
Hell yeah, baby! It's gonna be good. Yeah. The Lodge Room.
Yes, sir.
It's a great. I love what I've heard so far. So you guys are.
Thanks, man.
You guys are just getting better and better. Honestly.
Thanks, dude. I'm stoked for you guys to hear this new album. I think it's our best album for sure.
Cool.
I think so. Yeah.
Michael, what did we choose as our standout track?
Well, we couldn't conclude this episode without giving our listeners a taste of the title track. Once again, clocking in a little over 8 minutes. I tried to find the radio edit version, but they did not have it. But I'm sort of like, why would you do it with the radio edit version of this song?
Yeah.
It's just not the same.
No.
The best song on the album, like objectively speaking. So it's like, you got to just listen to the whole thing.
Yeah. So we're going to leave our listeners with a little Master of Puppets.
Thanks, everybody.
Thanks, everyone. We'll see you next week.